So for today's topic, it's about the introduction to web design, JavaScript DOM Manipulation, and BOM. So understanding the Document Object Model or DOM, the Document Object Model or DOM for short is a platform and language independent model to represent the HTML or XML documents. It defines the logical structure of the documents and the way in which they can be accessed and manipulated by an application program. In the DOM, all parts of the document, such as elements, attributes, text, and etc., are organized in a hierarchical tree-like structure, similar to a family tree in real life, that consists of parents and children. In DOM terminology, these individual parts of document are also known as nodes. The document object model that represents HTML document is referred to as HTML DOM. Similarly, the DOM that represents the XML document is referred to as XML DOM. In this chapter, we'll cover the HTML DOM, which provide a standard interface for accessing and manipulating HTML documents through JavaScript. With the HTML DOM, you can use JavaScript to build HTML documents, navigate the hierarchical structure, and add, modify, or delete elements and attributes of their content, and so on. Almost anything found in an HTML document can be accessed, changed, deleted, or added using the JavaScript with the help of HTML DOM. So this demonstrates the parent-child relationship between the nodes. The topmost node, which is the document node, is the root node of the DOM tree, which has one child, the HTML element, whereas the head and body elements are the child node of HTML parent node. The head and body elements are also siblings since they are at the same level. Further, the text content inside an element is a child node of the parent element. So for example, mobile OS is considered as child node of H1 that contains it, and so on. HTML attributes such as ID, class, title, style, etc. are also considered as nodes in DOM hierarchy, but they don't participate in parent-child relationship like the other nodes do. They are accessed as properties of element node that contains them. Selecting DOM elements in JavaScript. JavaScript is most commonly used to get or modify the content or value of HTML elements in the page, as well as to apply some effects like show, hide, animation, etc. But before you can perform any action, you need to find or select the target HTML element. So selecting the topmost elements. The topmost elements in HTML document are available directly as document properties. For example, the HTML element can be accessed with the document.documentElement property, whereas the head element can be accessed with the head document.head property, and the body element can be accessed with the document.body property. So here's some example. Here's some example of this selecting the topmost elements. So first, document element dot get attribute long, which prints the attribute or the element of the long of long. The document.body style is set color pink. Document head and first element child node name. So i-print niya si first element nga child, which is si meta, kani siya si parent, Then, ano iyang child na si Meta. I-print niya ang node name which is si Meta. So, ito i-run. So, ano siya ang output. Print niya ang en, then the background is set to pink, and then ang iyang node name nga si Meta. So, next is selecting elements by ID. So, selecting elements by ID. So, before we proceed, sa access body element from different locations. So, i-access na nato ang body nga element ni body element from other locations. So, first is ano siya diri sa kuan nga kuan niya ang element ni body here. Pero si head wala siya child nga body si Meta ra. Since si title is not wala, node siya pero wala siya labot sa mga parent and child relationship. Then next is here, gusto niya makuha ang kung nabay element si body. So, sa ato nakita na ay element si body. Na ay body element ang document. So, i-print niya si HTML body element. So, run na ta. So, ano siya ang output. Head is null since walay body sa taas. Tapos, ano siya ang paragraph. Then, the body has an object HTML body element. So, next is selecting elements by ID. So, you can select an element based on its unique ID with the get element by ID method. This is the easiest way to find an element in DOM tree. The elements by ID method will return the element as an object if the matching element was found, or null if no matching element was found in the document. Any HTML can have an ID attribute. The value of this attribute must be unique within the page. Within the page, you can no two elements in the same page can have the same ID. So this is a paragraph of ID my text. So, iyang gi-access ang element under the ID nga mark. So, can you see this is mark? I-highlight niya into yellow. That's why naka-yellow siya during sa naka-highlight ang element ni ID nga mark to yellow. Selecting elements by class name. You can use the get elements by class name method to select all the elements having specific class names. This method sends array-like object of all child elements which all have given class name. So here, get elements by class name si test. So kung ano niya ang elements by class name test. So this is paragraph under class name test. Then matches 0. Matches is a variable is equal to document ni test. So si matches with the index 0, kani siya same sa array is 0, 1, 2. Kani siya. Then i-bold niya ang text ni element test. Then next is matches that length -1 which is ang last value. So 3 minus 1 is 2, 0, 1, 2. Sa index nga 2 is i-italize niya. Then naka-highlight ang tulo ka element. So next is selecting elements by tag name. You can select elements by tag name using the get elements by tag name method. This method also returns an array like object of all the child elements with the given tag name. So documents get elements by tag name nga p. So kung ano yung elements nga na tag name nga p. So number of elements selected, kung pila ka elements ang na tag name nga p or paragraph, then iya siyang i-highlight. So ato siyang i-run. Number five. So muna siya. Nganong wala naka-highlight si this is another paragraph of text because wala iyang tag name is not p, naka-ano siya, naka-division naa siya under sa class nga test. This is another paragraph. Mao nang wala siya naka-highlight og yellow. Then number of selected elements is equals to 2. As you can see, duha ang naka-highlight og yellow. So next is selecting elements with CSS selectors. You can use query selector all method to select elements that matches the specified CSS selector. CSS selector provide a very powerful and efficient way of selecting HTML elements in a document. This method returns all the elements that matches the specified selector. Then here's the example for that CSS selectors. So select document query selector all UL auxiliary. So i-select niya ang elements ni Lee elements, printing the number of selected Lee elements kung pila ka buok. So as you can see under ni UL si Lee tulo ka buok, then coffee sa line through and si ano daw, so document that query select all UL Lee that tick ano siya is naka-line through, that's why naka-ano siya ching. So next is styling DOM elements in JavaScript. You can also apply style on HTML elements to change the visual presentation of HTML documents dynamically using JavaScript. You can set almost all the styles of elements like fonts, colors, margins, borders, background images, text alignment, width, height, position, and so on. So setting inline styles on elements. So inline styles are applied directly to specific HTML element using the style attribute in JavaScript. The style property is used to get or set the inline style of an element. Next, so add inline styles in the JavaScript to an element. So run. So this is a paragraph under a ID intro. So document get element by ID intro. So dari nakaano siya, On click set style, gitawag niya si function nga si set style nga kani ang buhaton. So iyang style to blue, then ang font size is 18, tapos naka bold siya. Once na i-click niya ning button, ma-change ang iyang element. So as you can, this is a paragraph. So ma-change ni siya into blue, tapos naka 18. So muna siya ang output. So next, getting style information from elements. Similarly, you get styles applied on the HTML using the using the style property. The style property isn't very useful when it comes to getting style information from the elements, but because it only returns the style rules set in the element style attribute, not those come from elsewhere, such as style rules in embedded styles or external style sheets. So, number 8. So, ano siya? Meron sa na to siya. So, as you can see, naka-red siya sa taas. Since mauman ang nakaset sa iyang style here. Gani siya. Then, deri, si LM daw is set niya si get element by ID nga intro. Tapos, i-print niya ang color nga giset kang intro, which is ang red. And then, kaon niya ang font size ni element ni intro, which is ang 20 pixel. Then the element font size style prints nothing since wala man siya font style nga gibutang gi-declare. So next is, you can also get the adding CSS classes to elements. You can also get set CSS classes to HTML elements using class name properties, since class is reserved word in JavaScript. So JavaScript uses the class name property to refer value of the HTML class attribute. You can use class list property to get or set remove CSS classes easily from an element. So dari is get element info, kani siya. Tapos i-add or i-replace niya ang class name into note. Kani si ID nga info, i-remove daw niya or i-remove niya or i-replace niya into note. So ato siya ma-replace na siya into note na class name. So paabot dayon sa ubos si class name nga note plus highlight, which is kani, meaning kani nga kuan, kani iyang buhaton, bali mao ni siya ang ma-output niya. So something very important, yung highlight din is color yellow instead of light green. So yellow siya. So ato tanawon kung mao ba gyud. So mao ni siya. To see kung legit, so ato ni siya i-change into pink. Save. Then refresh. So muna siya.
Good morning or afternoon, guys. My name is Justin Saboral, and I will discuss about DOM elements get attribute, set attribute method. So it's like JavaScript DOM element that set attribute. This method is used to set values of an attribute on the specified element. If the attribute already exists, the value is updated. Otherwise, a new attribute is added with the specified name and value. We should not use this method to set inline style as it will override other properties, CSS properties. So, kaning set attribute kay mag-set siya of value into a attribute on the specified element. Kung ang atong attribute nga nag-exist na siya already, kanang ma-update ang iyahang value. So, I will show you later. I will have example. And otherwise, kung kanang new siyang attribute nga added sa atong atong i-add nato nga name of value, ma-add siya dito sa atong element. So, dili siya ma-overwrite or dili siya mailisan. And dili siya murag we should not use this method sa atong inline style sa atong HTML sa atong style sa atong HTML CSS proper ma-override ang lain nga CSS nga properties like matato syntax element that set attribute ang name sa ato ang specified nga name attribute and the value and the element that set attribute buta nato ang name niya is isang style and the CSS nga property na value. For example ani ang p that set attribute nato is ang ID name sa atong attribute tas ang value ni ID is my div. So press kani siya na exist naman na siya daan. So ma-update na lang ni siya kung ilisan nato ning mydev. Buta nato mydev1 na update siya dito, magawa sa browser nato mydev una, pag save na nato ning mydev1, ma-save siya as a mydev1. And dere sa atong CSS properties nahimot butang ta direct set p the set attribute kaning p element nga paragraph p. P that set attribute style font size butang nato ang properties is font size 80 pixel atong ibutang una. Nag-set attribute ta of font family nga monospace. So mo ingon dari nga we should not use this method to set enhance style as it override other CSS. So mawala ni siya ang 80 pixel. Mahimo ni siya og font katong yung style font family nga monospace. So dili na siya mahimo 80 pixel niya siya font family na monospace. Naka-default pa man kani siya ang font style ang font family niya ni. So sa dire ka sunod sa get attribute. The get attribute returns the value of a specified attribute on the element. If the given attribute does not exist, the value returned will be either null, not nil, or empty string. So, ang sa get attribute, mag-return siya sa value sa atong attribute nga atong get. And if the given attribute does not exist, mag-return siya og null or empty string. Sa syntax niya is var attribute. Kabay niya nga attribute. So, itong attribute na to tas equals element that get attribute sa itong attribute. So, attribute name, ito na to ID or class sa iyahang name. So, I will give some example to you now. Let's go to this one. Ilitsa na to ulit. Listig ko kanina. So, kani dali ta magsugot sa atong ko og element dali nga p ang iyahang nakoy ID dali iyahang value is ang attribute name niya is ID, attribute value niya is my ID, tas napod kay class dali iyang value is my class. Butang ko paragraph karo diri sa para magawas dito sa atong browser nga paragraph para matistingan daw niya kung ugana ba gyud tong atong katong gingon nga we should not use this in the inline style ito na tutungan. So para para to may matag script tani Javascript script ano to ning text.script script himo ta og attribute var p is equal to document that get element by ID. Atong ID na to, pwede po niya siya sa class, pero ato siyang ikon pinaagi ID. Get element by ID. Itong ID, yung values ID is my ID. So, my ID. Then, semicolon. Then, console para ma-return yung value. Console.log atong attribute name, semicolon. Let's try this save. Tas, tanaw na to diri sa atong browser kung magana ba ni siya atong kani siya para matanaw na to kung gawas ba gyud ni sa atong browser. Start na to ni. So para makita nato to, diri ko sa console. Elements mataw na diri ta sa console para makita nato nga gawas ang paragraph og ang katong p nga element nga atong attribute itong PID is equals to ang value sa ID is my ID plus ang value niya si my class so katong paragraph na ito kani. Then balik na dari kana mag-set ta karon og set na to ni ang p attribute into set attribute into class sa class ta sa class to class ganina kita na to dali balik is ang syntax niya so ano paggamit kani parenthesis star ang name tas ang kaning value so ang name nato ganina ato is ang class man siya ang name tas ang sunod nato imon itong value na ni class nato iset. So, then sa atong class, nakaset naman siya daan into my class yung value. Tanaw na to kung maset ba na to ang attribute. May ingon ngayon nga, nag-exist na ganina atong attribute, pwede na to siya ma-setan balik. So, my class 1. Tanaw na to ni, before that, naging tao para marito ng value sa attribute na p. Console log p semicolon save. Ano na to ang class karon yung value kung mo gawas ba ang my class 1 kay ato yung set attribute na to ang class niya into my class 1 ato ta sa atong web as itong browser. So mo ni siya my class ang class niya value is my class. Ano na to reload na to na ang nailista na iyang value sa class into my class 1. So, nigana to itong set attribute. So, what if magamit ta og kanang direct na paagi sa pag-change sa class value ani. Pwede ta gamit ani class name equal to my class. Kung tanong na to, kung ma-overwrite ba siya or di madungagan siya, my class 2. My class 1 to ganina, tapos na to my class 2. Dire siya my class 2. Tanong na to ni karon, para ma-return ni siya, return para sa yapon console.log kita. Tanong na to ni karon, save na to. Tanong na to ni karon kung kita na ba siya sa browser. My class 1 pa man eh. Na to, kung pag-reload na to, my class 2. So, nigana tong direct na kani paagi sa pag bukan sa attribute. So, nimo siyang my class 2. So, balik ta dari. Balik na to. So, p.set attribute my class 1 and let's create kanang kaning get attribute ta. First, maging tag attribute para sa get attribute bar get at lang. Get at is equal to p dot get attribute para makuha na itong attribute. Okay. So, get attribute dari siya ang yahang attribute name. Tanang na to kung magawas ba ang kaning ikuha man nato ning attribute sa p nga element. kaning ID. Ang value sa ID nga name is my ID. So tanan nato kung mo gawas ba siya. But first, return nato ni ang atong value. Console.log sa itong attribute name na get at semicolon. Tanaw na to ni sa atong browser karon. Reload na to. Nakita na to nga nigawas ang value sa atong ID na attribute ay sa name na ID na yung value na my ID. Tara. Kita na to nga na siya sa taas. Pwede na to ni siya iubos dari. Pwede na to siya ubos dari para makita na to. Steam na to. Okay, mura siya print dito. So, dito na to balik. So, na siya sa ubos. Pwede po ta mag-direct ani nga style lang sa kaning sa atong pag-set sa attribute. Pwede gyapon na siya ilain na para ma-output to dito ang atong ma-output ning kaning ID. Pwede nato magbutang din yung p.id para magawas ang value sa atong ID. Try nato ni nga kaning direct. Kita nato nga ay gawas dari ang value sa ID. Dili po balik ko nato to karon para balik ko nato tong karon para testingan nato kung sa atong style na testing ta karon kung magbutang ta sa atong inline ano to ni kaning ID. Butang nato karon ang karong title mag-testing ta karon sa title into my title. Testingan nato kung ma-add ba ni ang title mahimo ta og sa name sa atong attribute nga title tas ang value sa atong title is my title. Tanan nato sa atong browser kung magawas ba ang title dari sa nga key tapad sa class. So save nato ni balik ta sa atong browser. Makita nato karon na butang na ang title, ang value niya is my title. So inato ra pag-set sa new mag-new ta mag-update ta sa atong mag-set ta sa atong attribute dari sa P. Pili ta mag-declare karon o sa atong inline. Kung testing nato itong inline nga CSS, itong style mo itong butang nato ganina, style, ano to, background color into red. Tas pili po ta karon mag-butang og font size na 450 pixels. So try nato ni kung magawas ba ni ang paragraph na siya background na save nato. As balik tayo sa atong so nakita nato nga ang atong ginline nga CSS nga paragraph na siya background color nga red sa font size niya yung 50. So what if kung mag-set tag attribute para sa atong style itong ganyan na we should not use this. So testingan nato ang style into property na font style na italic. Font style na italic. Font style na italic. Save na to ni. Try na to ni kung ma-overwrite ba ning kaning font style since di na maigo ning font size na 50 pixels kay na nakasemicolon ta no break ang ma-execute na ni siya. And tanaw na to karon kung overwrite ba tong ingon nga we should not use. So font style italic. Okay. So balik ta diri sa atong browser kung ma-italic ba ni. So nakita nato nga na-italic siya, then nawala ang kaning font size 50. Kaya nailisan ang style niya into font style niya into italic. Nawala tong na-override siya, di ba? So maningon nila nga kung malibog ka, kung nagbutang na kadaan dali background nga red, tas nagbutang ka dali sa nag-set attribute kasi imong style into font style italic, mawala ang kanani kaning font background nimo font style so kung ibutang nimo diya, so malibog na din ka asa ka nagpili po ta maghimo og direct karon direct nga pag kuan niya p.style dot p.style sa tama ba p.style dot font style style nga italic pwede ta daring tanaw na to ni kung override ba ang sa atong dari sa atong inline or ma-addan siya isa kay since wala man nato to giset attributan nato ang style ano to kung ma override ba siya or ma-addan ang atong value save na to ni ito sa atong browser muna ito nakita ganina katong nag-change ta sa atong kuning sa atong na-override itong style nga font style nga italic pag reload na to karon na implement na tong atong kaning atong gi-direct sa dari. So wala siya na override. Na-addan siya dari og value nga font style nga italic nga nahimo siyang italic tas wala pa na inisan to yang font background na color red ug font size na 50 pixel. So tinatuon ra siya guys, mas dali ra siya sa ton pero mo nang ingon katong ingon nga dili siya pwede gamit gamiton pang sa atong inline kay what if nagbutang ka dari o butang na to blue tas balik ko na to ganina tong font style that set attribute na kuan style tas atong value sa atong attribute name nga nato background color red unsa kay mahitabo ani ma-override siya syempre override siya dili siya blue so mahimo siyang red mailisan to tas nawala to ang kaning font size 50 pixel kay naapil na siya dali sa style na part so nato ra siya guys parang pwede siya sa atong hindi na siya to sa atong ID mo na to ni siya ang ID mo na to siya change lang na to atong ID into my ID again my ID again and sige to siya na siya mailisan yung ID paato na to sa atong value sa atong ID is my ID again so na blue na siya kay wala na nato giilisan ang override tong sa style. So nato ra guys ang kaning set attribute ang get attribute na sa JavaScript 2. So thank you for listening and have a good day. Thank you.
So for my topic JavaScript window. So for my topic, I'm going to tackle JavaScript window, JavaScript window screen, and JavaScript window location. So let's start with JavaScript window. So the window object. The window object represents a window containing a DOM document. A window can be the main window, a frame set or individual frame, or even a new window created with JavaScript. If you remember from the preceding chapters, we've used the alert method in our scripts to show pop-up messages. So this is a method of the window object. So the window object in calculating width and height of the window. So the window object provides the inner width and inner height property to find out the width and height of the browser window viewport. So it is in pixels and including the horizontal and vertical scroll bar if rendered. So here is an example that displays the current size of the window on button click. So this is the body of the code And so for my demo, I'm not going to show you guys the actual process in doing this using a software, but para makakita mo kung unsa siya, what I'm gonna show you is just only the highlight for the given topic along with its output. So let's try out that code. So this is the body of the code, and if we run that, we're going to see in our browser this output. So get window, if we view it in a new tab, so this is what we're going to see. So if we click this window size, we're going to see a pop-up window here from above. So we're going to see the description. So width is and height, so okay. X. So going back, so next is, however, if you want to find out the width and height of the window excluding the scroll bars, you can use the client width and client height property of any DOM element. So this is the code, and if we try that out, so this is what we'll be going to see in our browser. So if click that get window size, we're going to see from up here this width and height. So okay, going back, so next is JavaScript window screen. So the screen object, the window screen object contains information about the user screens such as resolution, width and height of the screen, so color depth, pixel depth, etc. Since window object is at the top of the scope chain, so properties of the window.screen object can be accessed without specifying the window that prefix. For example, window.screen.width can be written as screen.width. So instead nga window.screen.width, pwede na siya screen.width na lang. So the following section will show you how to get information of the user's display using the screen object property of the window object. So getting width and height of the screen, so you can use the screen.width and screen.height property obtains the width and height of the user screen in pixels. So the following examples will display your screen resolution on button click. So if you click that button, let's try that out. So here is the body of the code, and this is what we're going to see in our browser. So if we click the get resolution, so we're going to see this pop-up window said your screen is 1920 by 1080. So we get that from our our code. So going back, so getting available width and height of the screen. The screen that avail width and screen that avail height property can be used to get the width and height available to the browser for its use on user screen in pixels. So the screen's available width and height is equal to screen's actual width and height minus the width and height of the interface features like the taskbars in Windows. So that so this is the code, and if we try that out, so this is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to see in our browser. So if we run the code, so we get this. If we click this get available size, we're going to see another pop-up window here. So said available screen width is 1920 and height is 1050. Why is that? So kang instead nga atong height is 1080 and atong width is 1920 ra gyapon atong width, so atong height na usab. So instead nga 1080 ako ang width, so nahimo siya 1050 kay nga no tuod sa na siya sa taskbar. So okay, we're going back. So getting the screen color depth, so you can use the screen that color depth property to get the color depth of the user screen. So color depth is the number of bits used to represent the color of the single pixel. So color depth indicates how many colors a device screen is capable to produce. For example, screen with color depth of 8 can produce 256 colors. And here is the body of our code, and if we try that out, so our code, and here in the right corner, so this is what we see in our browser. So if we click this get color depth, we're going to see this new pop-up window. So your screen color depth is 24. Okay, let's go back. So getting the screen pixel depth, you can get the pixel depth of the screen using the screen.pixel depth property. So pixel depth is the number of bits used in per pixels by the system display hardware. So for modern devices, color depth and pixel depth are equal. So here is an example. So the body of the code, and if we try that out, so here in the right side, this is what we're going to see in our browser if we run this code. So if we click this get pixel depth, we're going to see this new pop-up window. Your screen pixel depth is 24. So okay, going back. So next is JavaScript window location. The location object. The location property of a window location for example, is a reference to a location object. It represents the current URL of the document being displayed in the window. Since window object is at the top of the scope chain, so properties of the window.location object can be accessed without window.prefix. So for example, window.location.href can be written as location.href. So instead ng window.location.href, it can be written as location.href na lang. So shorter na. So the following sections will show you how to get the URL of the page as well as hostname, protocol, and etc. using the location object property of the window object. So getting the current page URL, so you can use the window.location.href property to get the entire URL of the current page. So the following example will display the complete URL of the page on button click. So this is the body of the code, and let's try this out. So again, this is the body of the code, and here in the right side corner, so this is what we're going to see in our browser. So and we get to see this get page URL. So if we click that out, we're going to see a pop-up window again, and the URL of this page is this. So it's shown in this window. So okay, going back, so getting different part of a URL. Similarly, you can use other properties of the location object such as protocol, hostname, port, path name, search, and etc. to obtain different part of the URL. So this is the body of the code, and if we try that out, this is what we're going here in the right corner. This will be shown so in our browser. So note, if the URL does not contain a specific component, example port number, fragment identifier here, it will be set to this. So this is what we're going to see in our browser if we run this code. So going back, loading new documents, you can use the assign method of the location object. For example, window.location.assign to load another resource from a URL provided as parameter. And for example, this is the body of the code, and if we try that out, this is what we're going to see in our browser if we run this code. So open the output in a new tab by clicking the arrow next to show output button, then click the above button to see how it works. So if we're going to try this out in a new tab, this is what we're going to see. So if we load at this page, we're going to be redirected to that to a URL. So this is what destination nato. So mo na itong destination kung ato itong i-load atong home. So going back. So you can also use the replace method to load a new document, which is almost the same as the assign method. So the difference is that it doesn't create an entry in the browser's history, meaning the user won't be able to use the back button to navigate to it. So dili ka maka-press sa back button in the browser. So the body of the code, and if we try that out, so this is it. So if we reload this, this will be redirected here. So we can click, as you notice, we can click the back button. So that's the purpose of this the replace method. So going back, so alternatively you can use the window.location.href property to load new document in the window. So it produces the same effect as using the assign method. So the body of the code, if we try that out, let's try that out. So this is what we're going to see, and if we load this page here, exact same result, and we can click this back button. So we'll go back to this screen. So we're going back. So as you can see, we can click the back button. So it's the same as the assign method. So reloading the page dynamically. So the reload method can be used to reload the current page dynamically. So you can optionally specify a boolean parameter true or false. If the parameter is true, the method will be forced to the browser to reload the page from the server. So if it is false or not specified, the browser may reload the page from its cache. So the body of the code, and then if we try that out, so if we click the reload page, just this, no change, it just reloads this page. So wala tayong makita, so mara na siya. So that's all for my presentation.
So good evening everyone. My report is all about JavaScript history object and navigator object. So what is JavaScript history object? JavaScript history is a built-in interface, an object type which is used to access the browser window session history. Contains the list URLs visited by a user in a particular browser window, tab, or frame represented by the window object. The history object is a property of the JavaScript window object and can be accessed through the window.history property, used to access the session history for that window object. It provides useful methods and properties that let us navigate back and forth through the window session history. And to protect the privacy of the user, there are limitations to how JavaScript can access this object. JavaScript history object methods refers to the functions created inside the history object. This method specifies the actions related to the URLs visited in the browser window's current session. First is the back method. Back method specifies a method that loads the previous URL from the history list. Second is the forward method, specifies a method that loads the next URL from the history list. Third is the go method, specifies a method that loads a specific URL from the history list. Fourth is the push state method, used to push the given data onto the session history stack with the specified title. And the fifth is the replace state, used to update the most recent entry on the history stack to the specified data title and, if provided, URL. Here are the sample codes of the history method. The sample is the back method. Start with the doc.html comment tag, followed by the HTML tag, the body tag, button and click. The button and click is an event attribute which executes a script when the button is clicked. A script tag. This function is what you need. History.back tells the browsers to go back to the user's previous page. Close script tag, close body tag, and a close HTML tag. Same goes with the forward method. And take note that this method will not work if the previous and next page does not exist in the history list. Apart from back and forward method, to move to any specific page, we can use the go method. It takes an integer argument that works as an index value for history URL list. For example, go with -1 integer argument is equivalent to the back method. For go with 1 integer argument is equivalent to forward method. This method parameter can also be string. It is specified in Internet Explorer. The following are the properties of the history object. First is the length. The length specifies the number of elements contained in the object. Second, scroll restoration allows web application to explicitly set default scroll restoration behavior in history navigation. Third, state represents the state at the top of the history stack. The length property is used the most because it returns the number of URL in the history list of the current browser window. It is useful to find out how many pages the user has visited in the current browsing session. So now, let's talk about Navigator object. What does the Navigator object do? The Navigator object is used to fetch information related to the browser, a user agent like the browser name, browser version, operating system information, and etc. It's also a property of the JavaScript window object and can be accessed using the read-only property window.navigator for the current browser window. Like the other window object, window.navigator can be used without the window prefix. While the navigator object can be used to detect the browser, there are a few important things to consider when doing so. You should not use the navigator object to try and detect the version of the browser being used. This is because the navigator data can be changed by the browser's owner. Some browsers will make their identity to bypass sites. Test and browser cannot report on a new operating system released after the browser. Navigator object properties. The properties of the navigator object are the variable created inside the navigator object. We can access navigator object property as navigator.propertyName, where property name is the name of property. First is the app code name, specifies the code name of the browser. App name specifies the name of the browser. App version specifies the version of the browser being used. Cookie enabled specifies whether cookies are enabled or not in the browser. Platform contains a string indicating the machine type for which the browser was compiled. User agent contains a string representing the value of user agent. Header sent by the client to server in HTTP protocol. Geolocation returns object of geolocation which can be used to get the location information of the device. Online specifies whether the browser is online or not. Language returns a string with the preferred browser language, for example, NUS for English. Languages return a string with all the languages supported by the browser in order of user preference. The following sample code shows a few of the properties that can be detected with the navigator object. First, the body tag, a div tag with an ID of test and close div tag. The script tag, the navigator.app code name will display the browser creator, for example, Microsoft or Mozilla. The navigator.app name will display the browser name like Internet Explorer or Firefox. The navigator.app version will display the version number of the browser, usually a numerical value, and will also return the base operating system like 5.0 Windows. The navigator.cookie enabled property will display whether the browser has cookies currently enabled. This will return in Boolean value of true or false. GetElement by ID. The getElement by ID method returns the element that has ID attribute with the specified value, followed by close script tag and the close body tag. The code will cause the browser to display browser creator, Mozilla, browser name, Firefox, browser version and operating system, 5.0 Windows, cookies enabled, true. The navigator object doesn't have many standardized methods. Most of the methods available are experimental. First is register protocol handler. Allows websites to register themselves as protocol handlers so that they are allowed to open some standard URL schemes like SMS and etc. Second is share, used to utilize the native support of sharing available in browser. Third, send beacon, used to send a small data packet from the client to the server. Vibrate. If supported, these can be used to make the device vibrate. If not supported, nothing happens. This is useful in mobile browser. The use of navigator object. The navigator object can be used for the multiple specific use cases which can help you make your website better live, making your web app or website more compatible with different browsers by writing specific code for different browsers to resolve compatibility issues. You can check if the browser is online or not, to show some message if the browser is disconnected from internet. You can use the location information of the user to show location-specific content. And last, you can set the preferred language as the website language if you support multiple languages in your website. All these things mentioned can improve the user experience of your website multifold. That's all, and thank you.